now I'm just cold as ice.
Hey there guys, welcome back to Fail Tankin's Guide to Pally Tanking. I just wanted to go over with you guys about some macros that might make your life a little bit easier as a Pally Tank there. We're going to go ahead and jump right in here. First macro I want to share with you is the Bubs macro, as I call it. Basically it casts your Divine Shield on yourself, and then if you click it again it will also cancel the Divine Shield. Alright guys, I just wanted to show you real quick what I'm talking about with this cancel aura deal. So here I'm going to click my Bubs macro, and I'm going to click it again so you can see it removes it right away. So here's once, it stays on, click it again, and the aura's gone. So you can go ahead and, like I said, you click it once, you can keep your aura if you want to keep it, but then you click it again, it'll actually remove that aura off of you. That may not make sense right away, but I'll give you an example of what time you might want to use it. On the fight for Halfus, Halfus will end up putting a debuff on you that every 8 stacks you have to switch with your off tank. However, with your bubble, as a paladin, you can actually pop your bubble to remove the stacks, click this macro again to remove your bubble, and then immediately taunt Halfus back and continue your threat rotation. This will provide your off tank and the rest of your raid some extra time to go ahead and get one of those drakes down before the 2 tanks actually have to switch. And before your healers start having to heal for a lot of damage. So that being said, that's one example of a time you could use a macro like that. I'm sure there are other boss fights where you could easily remove a debuff and then taunt right away, get your threat gen up. A little tip about it, I recommend if you're going to do something like that in a raid, or if you're going to do it in a group, make sure that you stand away from everyone when you do it, because obviously the mobs, you're going to lose immediate threat. The mob's going to go for just a split second and turn, so if you have anyone right next to him, he's going to turn around and whack someone, probably take out one of your raid members. So you want to make sure you're at least a few inches on the screen away from a raid member and have that taunt ready. I also recommend you save up 3 holy power before you go ahead and pop that bubble. That way, as soon as you taunt back, you got 3 holy power, your Shield of the Righteous, you throw your threat gen up above the highest DPS there. Alright, moving on. We have your damage reduction button, or also known as your oh shit button. We're going to go ahead, and what it will do is it'll cast your Guardian of the Ancient Kings. As a Pally Tank, you should know it's going to reduce your damage by 50% for 12 seconds. It'll also cast Divine Guardian if you do have the talent point. Now, like I said, I mentioned in the other video, I actually gave up Divine Guardian for this specific spec in 4.1. However, if you do take Divine Guardian, I recommend you use this macro. Both cooldowns are on a 3-minute cooldown. This can save your raid a lot of damage. It'll also prevent you from taking a lot of damage. So if there's a lot of raid damage going on where you're popping Divine Guardian to prevent it, your Guardian of the Kings is going to allow the healer to not have to focus on you for so much. It's going to give a 6-second window where that healer is going to be able to get a few heals off on your raid members, especially if it's a 10-man. 6 seconds can make the difference if not having to focus on the tank. Alright, moving on from that, we have a Divine Plea macro that looks a lot like the Bubs macro. The purpose of the Divine Plea macro is, as I mentioned before, Divine Plea now gives us 3 holy power, as it has with that talent point. But what Divine Plea also does is it puts a buff and debuff on us. Yes, it's going to roll mana to us, but as a Pally Tank, you're really not interested in that mana. The issue is that it pops a debuff that prevents your self-healing by 50%. Well, you're going to think, I don't really heal myself as a tank, but keep in mind, you can use this in oh shit situations to pop Word of Glory. So if you're going to use it to pop Word of Glory immediately, you're going to want to cancel that Divine Plea aura, which is going to allow you to click it once to pop Divine Plea, and if you decide to, if you're not using Divine Plea for mana, if you're using it for a Word of Glory, click it again right away. You do not have to wait for the global cooldown. It will remove it immediately. You click it again, then you go ahead and pop your Word of Glory after the cooldown's done. Really great macro to have. The Inquisition / Shield of the Righteous. This macro, basically what it does is every time you pop your Inquisition or your Shield of the Righteous, it's going to go ahead and cast Divine Protection. It's also going to cast Avenging Wrath. I want to make 2 points with this macro. One thing is, both of those cooldowns are only on a minute cooldown. They don't enable your global cooldown, so that allows you to pop your Inquisition or Shield the Righteous. Since they're only a minute cooldown, there are several times you can be able to pull that cooldown out during the process of a fight, especially through like a raid boss that takes something like 6 minutes or longer even sometimes to take down that raid boss. You're going to be mitigating quite a bit of damage, and also giving your healers a little bit of a boost that's healing through your wings there, or Avenging Wrath. So it's a really nice macro. I put it on both Inquisition and Shield of the Righteous, mainly because, you know, the two differences between attacking single target, you have Shield of the Righteous, doing AoE damage, you're doing your Inquisition. As far as macros go, that's it for the popping macros. However, I do want to talk a little bit about healbot as far as tanking. You say healbot, you're crazy, I don't heal. Healbot is actually misleading with the name. All healbot really is it's an add-on that allows you to click on a party member's name and cast a spell on him. What does that sound like? That sounds like a great taunting add-on. Why? Because we have Righteous Defense. Righteous Defense, we can click on a target. It's going to go ahead and taunt 3 mobs that are attacking that target back to you. Also, you have Hand of Salvation, which I like to put on my middle button here, that you can cast on high threat DPS or any kind of DPS that might be pulling off of you. I actually like to use my Hand of Protection. Hand of Protection is probably not a spell that many paladins use, but if you think about how you're going to use it before you actually use it, it's a great damage reduction spell to cast on someone. A few things I want to point out is for healbot, obviously you can set it up. I'm not going to go into the details about setting it up. Also, just wanted to make a quick note about healbot here. You'll notice if you have a question mark here, you can click on this. You'll see a list of different spells you can use. Here's a list of macros that you currently have, which is really helpful. If you make a macro, you can just select it from this list and then click the select button. However, you're not going to see your taunts on any of those lists, so what you're actually going to have to do is just go in here and actually type the name of your taunt. So we're going to type in Righteous Defense. And there you go. Now you can use your control left click for your Righteous Defense. That's all you have to do. You don't actually have to find the name of the spell in that list. That's just a little bit of a list to help you out there to make a quick selection. That being said, don't forget we have Cleanse too. You can also set up Healbot to cast your Cleanse and Lay on Hands as a tank. It'll save your healer a little bit of mana, since you really don't need your mana regen is so fast. Even if you keep cleansing yourself, you really shouldn't have much of an issue running out of mana. However, one thing you might notice is your Hand of Reckoning. You cannot cast on a party member. It actually has to be on a target. So as we look at Hand of Reckoning here, what you're going to notice is I actually have this for my left mouse button. It says simply HOR. That's actually because I made this into a macro. I'm going to show you that macro now. The macro is actually /cast at mouse over target Hand of Reckoning. So what this is going to do is every time I click on a party member with Healbot, it's actually going to taunt whatever they're targeting. So what that means is when I click on something like a DPS, it's going to go ahead and taunt that target back to me. It's a really great macro if you know how to use it right. Okay, I'm going to go into a little bit of how to really use your taunts really efficiently, and who to taunt with and what spell. A lot of tanks don't really give a whole lot of thought to taunting, and when they get into those situations, they kind of panic because now that single taunt that they're using is down, and they got 2-3 group members taking damage. I just want to give a quick rundown of how to taunt with Healbot and what to use. Okay, you saw my setup there, Hand of Reckoning. So if you notice, what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to left click, and you'll see it cast Righteous Defense on myself, or Hand of Reckoning on myself, and I actually taunted this guard post here. So what taunt do you want to use for what party member? Hand of Reckoning is strictly for DPS. You want to use Hand of Reckoning with that macro on DPS because usually if a DPS is pulling off of you, with the exception of AoE damage, they're going to be single targeting that mob. So like a hunter or a death knight that you're tanking a boss, you're going to want to use Hand of Reckoning. Righteous Defense. Save your Righteous Defense for healers or AoE DPSers. So like, you know how mages get really crazy with their AoE DPS? Yeah, Righteous Defense would be great on them, especially your healer, where your healer and your mage are not really targeting any mob. It's just that they're gaining threat through the damage that they're doing. They're not actually targeting the mob themselves. So you want to try and save your Righteous Defense for healers and AoEers. Your Hand of Salvation, as I mentioned earlier, it's a great tip to pop this Hand of Salvation on your highest DPS target if you're worried about threat when you go to take a boss, like a raid boss or a boss on a heroic. It's a nice little tidbit just to go ahead and pop that. You're really only going to be able to use it about once every boss, so you're really not going to get it in a whole lot. It's more of a boss thing. The Hand of Protection. Alright, you gotta be really careful with using Hand of Protection. I'll tell you why. It reduces all physical damage to that target, but it also prevents them from doing all physical damage. So especially melee classes like your Death Knights, your Rogues, your Warriors, you really do not, you absolutely cannot use this spell. They'll be sitting there clicking on their spells going, what the hell's going on? And then a minute later you're gonna hear, oh, what the heck, you noob? So you don't want to click that on the melee DPS, but something like a caster, like a mage or a warlock, or even a shadow priest, or even your healer, if you see a mob ripping off of you for some reason and going straight to them, or say they threw a heal on you and you only did a single target hit when you ran up to grab the mob and they had a rolling hot on you, this is a great time that you could cast this to prevent some damage going straight to your healers. They're only going to receive magic damage, and if it's magic damage, most of the time the caster is going to be right in front of you anyways. You can rip off the caster, then click your Righteous Defense, get those off of them. So those are the kind of different taunts. Those are the times you want to use them. Keep that in mind. Maybe practice it a little bit. Hope this helped, guys. If you have any questions, feel free to comment or whisper me in game. Once again, guys, it's healbot, and I'm out. Hope to see you guys in my next video on rotations.